I'm sure you've been keeping up with US-China tariff war. It has been quite an entertaining saga. US will say something, China will respond back. US will add tax, China will double it. US will insult the Chinese stand up for themselves and say something else. It has been like a soap opera. Watching a soap opera, but then it's two nations going at each other. But I thought it is quite an important time to talk about how these two nations going back and forth, and China, honestly, coming out of this on top. It's looking like China is winning this war, but we'll talk about why we think China is winning this war. But also, Africans, what can we learn from how China is handling the situation? America is this big nation that everyone is scared of or everyone wants to bow down to because of the power that it has. But now China, just years back, being seen as just a nation that is barely making it, to now becoming a powerhouse, a nation that is respected to the point where they can go on a tariff war with the US and come on top. How can us Africans learn from this, and what exactly can we do or implement to be respected in the global stage? We'll talk about that, okay? That's the topic of today. But first, in case someone missed this huge soap opera that was happening on the global stage, let me just remind you what happened. Trump introduced a tariff for the Chinese, and this is how they responded.
With China, as you know, against my statement, they put a 34% tariff on above what their ridiculous tariffs were already. And I said, if that tariff isn't removed by tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we're putting a 50% tariff on above the tariffs that we put on.
We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
And after their response, J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, you know, that top-ranking high official, called the Chinese workers peasants.
We borrow money from Chinese peasants to buy the things those Chinese peasants manufacture. That is not a recipe for economic prosperity. It's not a recipe for low prices, and it's not a recipe for good jobs in the United States of America.
And this is how they responded.
中方对中美经贸关系的立场已经讲得很清楚了。听到这位副总统说出这样无知又缺乏礼貌的话，令人诧异，也感到悲哀。
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end.
Yeah, that was quite the back and forth. And there's more actually that, because of time, I can't show you. But if you Google or YouTube, you'll find all of the back and forth, and you can entertain yourself after you watch this video. So that is what happened between China and the US. It's still unfolding, actually. It's not been concluded, but, you know, it's still ongoing. So what can Africans learn from this, especially from how China handled America? First of all, the way they handled the insult that was thrown at them. They responded with dignity and unity, I might add. Africa needs to cultivate this kind of unity. You saw how they spoke in unison. They all came together to speak as one. We need that. And you saw how they were so proud of where they came from. It was really hard to even insult them. That's the kind of pride Africans need to have. And secondly, and the most, I think, important one, is that China worked so hard to develop their internal economy. They worked so hard to have a structure when it comes to industrializing their manufacturing, their skills, the people, the employees. You see how well everything works, especially after this debacle. A lot of the companies, the manufacturing companies, came out and started showing how their workers work in their factories or in their warehouse, how efficient they are, how much the US actually depended on them, even though the US was trying to put them down and say that, you know, the value we give you is more than what the value you give us, which I think they proved in this whole situation how important China is to the world, especially when it comes to their labor, because it costs so low to make everything, almost everything in China. companies or businesses, entrepreneurs just travel to China, get that done, and come home and sell it. And it's a smooth process because they made it that smooth. It's intentional. It just doesn't happen like that. So that is something we should learn as well. Are we working on our people skills? Are we working on building manufacturing sites? Are we working towards being valuable, not just for our people, but to the world, to the point where they want to tell us who we are? We can stand up and say, wait a minute, we're not going to take this disrespect because we worked hard for it and we've developed ourselves. And China stood firm during the tariff conflict, didn't bow down to external pressure. And that is exactly what we need to do as Africa. We can take this lesson of resilience, especially when facing challenges like external debt or foreign influence in our market. That is how we need to stand up for what is right. And that we can only do if we work hard to make sure that we're in the position that we can say no to. Like, did we develop our industries? Our farmers, are they paid well? Did we make it easier for them to farm? You will find it hard to believe that our farmers, majority of them in many African countries, still have to use the olden days equipment. They don't even have tractors, hence making their life harder. Hence, they can't produce more than what they themselves or the 2 or 3 employees that they've hired. That's it. That's the limit that they're able to do. And are we actually doing that? What are we good at? What are the natural resources that we have? Let's focus on that. The natural resources that we have, are we just exporting the raw materials instead of developing them in our countries, adding some value to it, paying our own people to make that? Skills, like, are we transferring skills when we're allowing these multinational companies to come and explore our minds and take what's ours? Are we really paying attention to those factors? And the other thing I want us to talk about is the human capital. How, when all of this unfolded, they started showing how much their people are putting in the work, how much China focuses on its people when it comes to investing in education, training, and technology. So there's another learning. Are we really investing on the people, on the younger generation? What exactly are they learning in school? Are they still learning what we learned in school, which is, history about outside of Africa, something that doesn't concern us, learning theory instead of practical? Are we changing that? And it showed that China is extremely self-reliant. It showed that they make sure that whatever they produce, they consume, and vice versa. Are we doing that? Are we self-reliant? We all know the answer, but I want this to be a learning moment, not necessarily to bash on ourselves. It's okay to learn from others' mistakes, from others' victory. If there's a blueprint, and we know it works, why not, try to do the things that are working in this world? So these are a few things that I noticed from this China-US tariff war. But what were your takeaways from that whole, as I called it, soap opera? Let me know down below. I am Wongel Zelalem. I'll see you on the next one. Stay blessed. Bye.